I am Jeff Goldberg. We start this morning with breaking news. The death of D.C. council member and self-proclaimed mayor for life Marion Barry overnight at the age of 78 years old. His family saying in a statement that Barry died shortly after midnight at the United Medical Center in Southeast Washington. This came after having been released from Howard University Hospital yesterday, was said to be doing okay. Our D.C. Bureau Chief Sam Ford is live this morning in Southeast Washington at the United Medical Center. Sam, so many people across this city, across this region, across this country. When you mentioned District of Columbia city government, Marion Barry for so many people was the first name that came to mind.
Indeed, Jeff. Marion Barry is a towering figure, was a towering figure here in Washington, probably the most important political figure in this city. Interestingly, last night, Barry's press secretary put out a statement, I guess around 8:30, saying that at 6:30 he had been released from a 3-day stay at Howard University Hospital. We understand that driver brought him home. At some point he went out to get something to eat, and then the driver brought him back. As he was getting out of his car, he collapsed outside his house. The driver called an ambulance. The ambulance came here to United Medical Center. They brought him here.
Councilmember Barry was brought here to United Medical Center via ambulance at 12:15 a.m. He was pronounced dead at 1:46 a.m. Certainly it's a sad day in the District of Columbia. Our doctors were very instrumental in making sure he had the proper care in his last moments here. And so we're just pretty saddened about his death today.
And of course, Natalie Williams there, the spokesman for the hospital, used to be Marion Barry's press secretary. Marion Barry was a towering political figure here in this local Washington. He moved here in the 60s with the civil rights movement, and he stayed. And we're going to take a look back at his life.
This city is better off now because of my leadership.
The city paper once called him D.C.'s mayor for life, and in many ways it was true. Even when he did not hold the actual office, he dominated the city's attention as no other figure. Marion Barry moved to D.C. from his hometown of Memphis in the 1960s. He had been a civil rights activist, a member of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, college kids who sat in at lunch counters to protest policies that refused to serve blacks, and occasionally they were attacked by angry whites and arrested. Barry called it public service.
I spent over 30 years of my life since 1960 giving it to the public. In the civil rights movement, arrested some 2 or 3 dozen times.
After the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968 and the massive riots in Washington, Barry emerged here as a high-profile community activist running a black self-help group called Pride Incorporated. From there, he was elected to a less than satisfying school board post.
They're reactionary, and you have to just try to figure out how you get some power in this town.
Barry was next elected to city council, and an incident in 1977 rocketed him to prominence. A radical group called the Hanafi Muslims took over the district building, D.C. City Hall, and in the chaos they shot then at-large council member Marion Barry and news reporter Maurice Williams, who was killed. The city negotiated an end to the takeovers, and Barry survived.
Well, I wish it hadn't rained on our parade, but on the other hand, that's good luck.
The following year, Barry was elected mayor of Washington, D.C. He pulled an upset and would remain mayor for 16 of the next 20 years. The early Barry years were marked as a time of progress for D.C. black business that saw its share of city contracts soar from single digits to more than a third. He guaranteed all D.C. youths who wanted them summer jobs. But by Barry's third term, his administration suffered from daily news stories about his rumored drug use with a woman named Karen Johnson and with a drug dealer named Charles Lewis. Barry denied it all.
The mayor's word in a situation ought to at least be a little bit higher than that of a convicted drug dealer or a prostitute.
Then in January 1990, in a video seen round the world, Barry smoked crack cocaine in an FBI sting where they used an old girlfriend, Rashida Moore, and arrested the mayor on drug charges. The next day, a wild scene in front of U.S. District Court as the mayor of the nation's capital, his wife Effie at his side, arrived for arraignment on misdemeanor charges of possession of crack cocaine. He was ultimately convicted of one misdemeanor and sentenced to 6 months in prison. He turned over the reins of government to newly elected Mayor Sharon Pratt Kelly and was off to serve his prison sentence. 5 months after he got out of prison, he was back on the campaign trail, defeating Wilhelmina Rolark as Ward 8 council member.
You can come back. It's not that you get knocked down, that you fall down, or get kicked down, that you get up. That's important.
2 years after that, he was campaigning for his old job as D.C. mayor, and yes, he was elected once again. Striking was how he was loved in much of the black community.
I love Marion Barry. He did a lot for us black people, and I will always vote for him.
Also striking how he was loathed among whites, where his approval rating was 5%.
I've hated him since the 80s, so that opinion has not changed.
Back in office, Barry's response to whites being upset by his re-election.
Well, get over whatever personal hang-ups you got. Get over it.
But it was Barry who got the worst of it the second time around. Kelly handed Barry back a city that was flat broke. Congress appointed a control board to run D.C., with Barry as mere figurehead. The man Barry appointed as his chief financial officer, Anthony Williams, publicly turned on Barry.
I'm hard-pressed, quite frankly, to see how this job can be done without the support of the administration.
The control board backed Williams, and Williams eventually got himself elected mayor, and at that moment, the control board gave back control of the city to the mayor's office. The control board chairman, Andrew Brimmer.
We will have a new mayor.
Out of office once again, Barry would make a try for an at-large council seat of Phil Mendelson. Then in a traffic stop, park police said he had cocaine around his nose. Barry dropped out. Then back to Ward 8, where he defeated the incumbent Sandy Allen and returned to the council. A bumpy ride. After a guilty plea on tax evasion charges, a drug test revealed cocaine turned up in his system at age 70, and he was back under the authority of the court. His domestic life was bumpy as well. A divorce from his wife Effie, he married Cora Mastersberry for his second stint as mayor, then later they separated. He was again making appearances with Effie, and at the death of Effie in September of 2007 of leukemia, he was there as part of the family, listening to son Christopher describe his mother.
They say she was like a Jackie Kennedy, but that's not, no, I don't think that describes her. A woman like that only comes every few thousand years. She was like a Nefertiti or Cleopatra.
Barry and son walked down from the pulpit at the National Cathedral arm in arm. He was loved by many, hated by many, but he will be remembered by all. I'm Sam Ford, ABC 7 News. And of course, that was Barry and his son Christopher, who was his survivor, also Cora Mastersberry. Barry was planning a number of big things. In fact, this evening, tonight, on Oprah Winfrey's network, she had done an interview with Barry, and they were planning a watch party for that. And then on Tuesday, Barry has his annual turkey giveaway at Union Temple Baptist Church, 3,000 turkeys. The people line up for it. This is something Barry loved. And the thought here is that he wanted to get out of the hospital for these two big events, and he did get out of the hospital, and he didn't last very long. Marion Barry is dead at the age of 78, a towering figure in this city. Reporting live from United Medical Center in Southeast Washington, I'm Sam Ford, ABC 7 News.
Sam, if you'll allow me, just a couple questions, if you can. I know you covered Marion Barry for years. You know him well. And looking at your retrospective, which was just tremendous, so comprehensive, you know, a larger-than-life personality, to say the least. What are some thoughts you have of him, not just as a politician, but as a man?
Well, he was a very intelligent man. I mean, when you get down to it, obviously in later years there were, you know, a lot of issues about his character and that. But he was, he almost had a PhD, if you can believe that. I mean, he was a person who studied chemistry, and he almost had a PhD in chemistry. I talked to him about his life, and you know, he started out in Memphis, Tennessee, going to Lemoyne College, and at one point went to the University of Tennessee, and then ended up at my alma mater, Jeff, the University of Kansas. He didn't like it. He said he hated Lawrence, Kansas, but nevertheless he went there as part of this thing. He was a graduate student and actually planning to be a kind of an egghead, you know, one of the professors, the types of people who work in these labs, and that was sort of his goal. But in the civil rights movement, it sort of changed. It's interesting. There was a cop here in in D.C., and I'm trying to remember his name at this point, but the point is this. He was a student at in Hutchinson, Kansas, and a group of students in Kansas were going to go down for the sit-ins. And he said that Marion Barry was on the bus from Lawrence, where the University of Kansas is. He said before they left the state of Kansas, Marion Barry knew everybody's name on that bus. And of course, then they got down to the South, where they did their sit-ins. But this was a man who, whose life changed because of the civil rights movement, and obviously he comes here to Washington, becomes an activist here in the city, and is elected to to the positions of power in this city, the mayor for 4 terms.
One more question for you, Sam, and I know you guys had that Kansas connection in reading his obituary early this morning. You described that situation on the bus and his ability to really connect with people in an unbelievable way. Your retrospective also looked at obviously a controversial figure. There was a lot of detractors, a lot out there, a lot of it along racial lines. His legacy, obviously, he is, as I said before, to so many people associated with the District of Columbia government, but also many problems with law enforcement and otherwise. Legacy, where does his name now stand in terms of what legacy he will leave?
Well, he obviously, if you're talking about his legal issues, quite frankly, they never seemed to stop. I mean, it was sort of one after the other. You saw some of those in the piece. Some of them we didn't put in the piece. I don't know. I think he clearly had a drug issue, and I think this drug issue was the cause of a lot of these legal problems. When I came to Washington, I guess 30 years ago, Marion Barry was not seen as any kind of drug figure. I mean, he was the mayor. He was a serious person. But after this incident at the Vista Hotel, it seemed to go downhill from there. In fact, it probably started a little earlier than that, and then after that. But in this Ward 8, where what he represented, you could go up to people and say, do you think that Marion Barry has a drug problem? They would say yes. Are you going to vote for him again? And they would say yes. They didn't care. It was not important. Right. And so he was the man for this area. For many people in this city, they're going to be extremely sad today because Marion Barry represented them. And if you look particularly at the black community, this was predated me, but a number of people said before Marion Barry there was no significant black middle class in much of D.C. He brought a lot of black people in government who had been excluded from the federal government and, sort of got in positions of power. And I think that is the source of his popularity. Okay.
Sam, thank you so much. We're going to hear from you throughout the morning here on News Channel 8. We really appreciate your reporting and your perspective. We'll get back to you here in just a little bit. Thanks, Sam.